And that's the irony here. Once again, Harry and Meghan, Duke and Duchess of Self-Sabotage, strike again.
When Meghan's lawyers finally confirmed the claim, royal circles were thrown into fresh turmoil. For years, many believed Catherine stood closest to the part of Princess Diana's legacy that mattered most. But behind the palace image, another line of inheritance had been sitting in sight, waiting to ignite old tensions. From Diana's jewels to the fortune that helped Meghan and Harry after their royal exit, each detail pointed to something far bigger than style or status. But what exactly was confirmed, and why has it shaken the royal family so deeply? Let's find out. The shock that comes from one old belief. For a very long time, Catherine was seen as the woman who had the clearest and strongest claim to the space Princess Diana once occupied inside the royal family. That belief did not appear out of nowhere. It grew slowly, then settled in so deeply that many people stopped seeing it as an opinion and started treating it like a fact. Catherine wore Diana's famous sapphire engagement ring, one of the most recognizable pieces of jewelry in modern royal history. She stood beside Prince William, the future king, and carried herself in a way that matched what many people expected from the next great royal woman. Calm, polished, careful, and committed, she came to represent steadiness at a time when the monarchy needed exactly that image. As the years passed, this picture only became stronger. Catherine was not just William's wife. In the eyes of many royal watchers, she looked like the natural continuation of a certain royal ideal, one that people had once connected with Diana, even though the two women were very different in personality and style. Catherine's public role, her graceful appearances, and her closeness to the future of the crown helped create the feeling that Diana's public space had, in some form, passed to her. It became such a familiar idea that fewer and fewer people paused to ask if that was the full story. Instead, they accepted it, repeated it, and built more royal commentary around it. Then came the inheritance angle, and that is where everything started to shift. This was not just another round of gossip, and it was not simply another comparison between Meghan and Catherine. It struck much deeper than that. Suddenly, the discussion was no longer limited to image, symbolism, or who seemed closer to Diana in the public imagination. It became a question of what Diana actually left behind, who had access to it, and whether the public had been looking at the whole matter far too narrowly for years. That is why the reaction has felt so immediate and so intense. It did not brush against an old assumption. It hit it directly. The most striking part is that the claim does not stop at saying Meghan was connected to Diana. That part was already known. People had seen the jewelry, heard the stories, and followed the emotional comparisons for years. But this newer argument pushes much further. It suggests Meghan's side can point to inheritance, to Diana's reported wishes, and to the role Harry's inheritance played in supporting their life after stepping away from royal duties. That changes the tone completely. It suggests Catherine may have had the stronger public image for years, but not the exclusive hold on Diana's legacy that many assumed. And that is the detail making people pause, look again, and wonder if the old royal picture was ever as complete as it seemed. That is what makes this feel less like a small family detail and more like a challenge to a story the public had accepted for a very long time. When a claim questions not only appearance, but ownership, memory, and meaning, even seasoned royal followers pay much closer attention. Catherine is often seen as the main custodian of Diana's legacy, while far less attention is given to Meghan, who is also Diana's daughter-in-law. But has Meghan also been showing the bond she shared with her mother-in-law? In what ways has she been carrying Diana's legacy forward? Let's uncover the details. The hidden Diana bond. Meghan had been showing the world. Meghan's link to Princess Diana was never a small side note, even though many people tried to treat it that way. From the beginning, there were signs that Diana's memory was going to remain close to Meghan, in a very visible and meaningful form. One of the clearest examples was Meghan's engagement ring. Prince Harry did not simply choose a beautiful design. He included 2 diamonds from Diana's personal collection, making the ring more than a romantic gift. It became a quiet but powerful statement that Diana's presence would remain part of their story. That same feeling became even stronger on Meghan's wedding day. For the evening reception, she wore Diana's aquamarine ring, a piece that carried its own history and emotional weight. It was elegant, striking, and instantly recognizable to people who followed royal life closely. In that moment, the connection was impossible to miss. This was not just a bride choosing a glamorous jewel for a special event. It was Meghan stepping into a part of Diana's legacy in a way the public could actually see. As time went on, the pattern did not disappear. Meghan was also seen wearing butterfly earrings linked to Diana, along with a bracelet and other pieces that kept that bond alive. Each appearance added another layer to the story. Each piece reminded people that Diana's influence had not faded into the background. It was still there, still powerful, and still shaping how Meghan was seen. Even the quietest appearance could spark talk, because people were not only looking at diamonds and gold. They were looking at memory, grief, family history, and the emotional pull Diana holds today. That is one reason these details continue to matter so much. They are small in size, but not in meaning. What makes all this so important is that these were not loose tributes, casual fashion choices, or empty gestures meant only to stir headlines. These were direct physical links to Diana herself. The jewels were real. The history behind them was real. And the emotional message attached to them was real too. That changes the way people read Meghan's place in the royal story. For years, some people preferred to see Meghan as someone standing outside Diana's legacy, almost like she was borrowing a symbol that did not truly belong to her. But once these pieces are viewed together, that reading starts to look much weaker. Meghan was not simply wearing pretty jewelry that reminded people of Diana. She was wearing actual pieces connected to Diana's life, style, and memory. That is a much deeper link. This is also why the inheritance argument lands with such force. Once Meghan's side is presented as pointing to inherited pieces, reported wishes, and a continuing claim to Diana's legacy, the discussion becomes much more serious. It no longer looks like an outsider reaching for royal symbolism from a distance. It looks like a woman who had already been carrying parts of Diana's legacy in full public view for years. And once people start seeing it that way, the old assumptions about who stood closest to Diana begin to shift in a way that is hard to ignore. Beyond the jewels Diana left behind as part of her lasting legacy to Meghan, did she also leave something important for Harry? And how does that show that Meghan's place in Diana's legacy goes far beyond jewelry alone? Now, let's explore the Diana inheritance that did more than preserve memory. Harry's inheritance pulled Meghan closer to Diana. During the Oprah interview, Harry revealed something that shifted the conversation around Diana's legacy. He explained that the inheritance his mother left him helped protect his family after he and Meghan stepped away from royal duties. That statement gave the issue a much heavier meaning. Until then, most people were looking at Diana's legacy through signs to notice, such as jewelry, fashion, image, and the comparisons between Meghan and Catherine. But Harry's words moved the discussion away from level symbolism and into something far more serious and personal. Suddenly, Diana's legacy was not only about memory or appearance. It had become part of Meghan and Harry's life, safety, and future. According to Forbes, the amount Harry inherited from his mother was about $10 million. On its own, that figure is already striking. But the true weight of it comes from what Harry said it helped him do. He explained that the money from Diana became part of what helped cover security for his wife and children after he and Meghan lost the royal protection that had once surrounded them. That changes everything. It means Diana's legacy did not remain sealed away in the past like a treasured memory people speak about with sadness and nostalgia. It moved forward into the present. It became active. It became useful. It became part of the real life Meghan and Harry were trying to build at one of the most difficult and uncertain moments they had ever faced. When Harry and Meghan left royal life behind, they stepped into a season marked by intense pressure, constant judgment, and very little certainty. Everything around them shifted quickly. The protection many people believed would always surround them no longer seemed guaranteed. During that fragile time, the money Harry received from Diana's inheritance was far more than an emotional reminder of his mother. It became real, timely support that helped them stay steady and make their next steps. Seen this way, Diana's legacy no longer feels limited to old photos, public tributes, or memories carefully preserved by the palace. It becomes something far more immediate and personal, a lasting gift that reached into Meghan's post-royal life and helped shape what came next for them both. Catherine had the image that many people connected with continuity. She stood beside William, wore the famous sapphire ring, and seemed to hold the public space that many linked with Diana for years. That image was powerful, and it shaped the way royal watchers saw her. But Meghan had something else, something less visible but far more concrete. She had a life with Harry that was partly sustained by the money Diana left behind. Harry inherited a large sum from his mother, and that inheritance helped him and Meghan stay afloat after stepping back from royal duties. But did Diana leave anything specifically meant for Meghan too? What exactly was left behind? And did Meghan's decision to step away from royal life affect what she could claim as part of Diana's legacy? Let's find out. The hidden wish that changed Diana's legacy. For a long time, many royal watchers assumed Princess Diana's legacy would naturally rest more with Catherine. That idea felt easy to accept because Catherine wore Diana's sapphire engagement ring and appeared to step into the public space that many people once connected with Diana herself. Over time, that image became so strong that it started to feel almost unquestionable. But one reported detail about Diana's own wishes challenges that belief in a big way. According to reports about her letter of wishes, Diana wanted her jewelry kept for William and Harry so that their future wives could one day wear or use those pieces. That detail changes the conversation and opens a far bigger debate. This detail matters much more than it first appears. It hints that Diana never saw her legacy as something meant to pass through only one path. She likely did not picture one woman carrying the full heart, memory, and meaning of her jewels, while another remained shut out. Instead, her thinking seems wider and more inclusive. It points to both of her sons at once, not one over the other. And if both sons are part of that vision, then both marriages naturally fall within it too. That shifts the whole tone of the discussion. What once felt narrow and fixed suddenly feels broader, warmer, and far harder to dismiss for many people watching today. Once people take that detail seriously, Meghan wearing Diana's jewelry starts to mean something far deeper. It no longer feels like a sweet extra, a touching tribute, or a carefully chosen public moment meant to stir emotion. It also stops looking like a simple nod to Diana, which was lovely to see, but carried little real weight. Instead, it begins to look like part of a future Diana may already have had in mind for her sons and the women they would marry. The jewelry no longer seems borrowed from someone else's story. It starts to look firmly placed inside a wider family line, one that included more than many people were willing to admit before. That is why many royal watchers can no longer brush this issue aside. For years, the public story felt neat and easy to follow. Catherine appeared to carry the clearest and most visible tie to Diana, and large parts of the public accepted that view almost without question. But the moment Diana's reported wishes are brought into focus, that tidy picture begins to shift. Catherine may still hold a powerful public bond to Diana in the eyes of many, Yet the claim that she alone stood at the center of Diana's lasting legacy suddenly feels less certain and much harder to defend. What once seemed settled now feels open to debate. If Diana expected both of her sons' wives to carry and use her pieces, then the emotional space surrounding those jewels was never exclusive in the first place. It was never meant to belong to one woman alone. That means Meghan's place beside Diana's memory looks less like a later development and more like something that had always been built into the wider family story. Diana reportedly made it clear that her jewelry was meant to be shared between her daughters-in-law. But why does Catherine seem to appear more often in those pieces? Could her position as a future queen have given her an advantage over Meghan? Let's uncover the details. Catherine's royal image and Meghan's claim. For a long time, Catherine's position looked stronger because she carried the symbols the public could see most clearly. The biggest example was Diana's sapphire engagement ring. That ring was not just a beautiful piece of jewelry, it was loaded with emotion, memory, and history before Catherine ever placed it on her finger. The moment she wore it, many people felt the message was plain. Here was the woman standing beside the future king, wearing one of the most famous pieces connected to Diana, and stepping into a public role that seemed to echo the royal path Diana had transformed. That image grew stronger over time. Catherine not only wore Diana's ring, she was also seen in major jewels from Queen Elizabeth II's collection, including the Bahrain pearl drop earrings and the Japanese pearl choker. Those pieces carried a different kind of meaning. They spoke less about emotion and more about duty, ceremony, state history, and the formal side of monarchy. Every time Catherine appeared in such jewels, the impression deepened. She looked like the woman of continuity, of calm order, of royal discipline. She seemed to embody stability at the center of the institution. That is one reason so many people came to believe she held the clearest claim to the place Diana once occupied in royal life. Meghan's side of the story moves differently, and that is what makes this debate so compelling. Her link does not seem rooted in royal duty, public ritual, or the weight of the monarchy. Instead, it feels warmer, closer, and more personal. It points people toward Diana not as a distant symbol of the crown, but as a real woman with feelings, struggles, and love as a mother. That shift matters. It changes how people read the comparison, because the focus is no longer on status or tradition alone. It becomes about emotion, memory, and the human side of Diana's legacy, which feels far more powerful. When people think of Catherine, the first thing they often notice is the polished public image. They see the future queen, the calm appearances, the carefully managed role within the family, and the famous jewels that strengthen that impression. With Meghan, the Diana link leads people in another direction. The focus is not only on image or public duty, it turns toward inheritance, reported wishes, personal items, and the deeper meaning behind them. Those details make people ask an emotional question. They begin to wonder not just who looked closest to Diana in public, but who Diana may have intended to leave parts of her memory and legacy to family. Public symbolism can be powerful, but it can also be misleading when people assume it tells the whole truth. A ring seen by millions can shape public feeling, but it does not automatically cancel what was passed down, intended, or personally carried. And once that thought begins to settle in, the old picture starts to shift. Catherine may still represent the face of continuity, but Meghan's side is raising the possibility that Diana's deeper legacy was never defined by public image alone. Although Catherine may reflect Diana's public image more strongly, both women are tied to her legacy in different ways. But did Meghan ever show her frustration? Could tension between them have grown from the feeling that Catherine kept taking the spotlight? And what moment made it clear that Meghan was tired of being overshadowed by Catherine? Let's find out. The painful Meghan and Catherine rift. This rift between Catherine and Meghan did not arrive in a quiet or neutral setting. It came into a royal story that was already full of tension, suspicion, and years of public comparison between Meghan and Catherine. By the time inheritance entered the conversation, many people were no longer looking at the two women with fresh eyes. They were looking at them through the memory of moments that had already shaped how the public felt about both of them. That is a big reason this subject has stirred such strong interest. It did not begin on empty ground. It landed on a relationship many already believed had been under pressure for a long time. One of the moments people still return to most often happened shortly before Meghan's wedding. Early reports claimed Meghan had made Catherine cry during a disagreement involving bridesmaid dresses for Princess Charlotte. That version spread quickly and settled into public discussion almost as if it were final. Then, Meghan later gave a very different account during the Oprah interview. She said it was actually Catherine who had made her cry. Meghan described the experience as deeply painful and said it marked a turning point in their relationship. That change in perspective did not calm the conversation. If anything, it made the whole matter more intense. The reason that moment lasted so long in public memory is simple. It gave people something emotional to attach to. Before that, some viewers may have thought the differences between Meghan and Catherine were mostly media invention, ordinary royal adjustment problems, or simple personality contrast. But the crying story changed the mood. It made the relationship feel wounded. It made people feel that something had gone wrong behind palace walls long before the later public fallout made everything harder to ignore. From that point forward, the Meghan and Catherine comparison stopped feeling distant or harmless. It started feeling personal. That shift changed the meaning of everything that came after. The jewelry was no longer just jewelry. It became part of a larger emotional contest in the minds of many viewers. The symbolism was no longer just about style, history, or royal presentation. It began to feel tied to rivalry, closeness, exclusion, and hurt. Even the question of Diana's legacy started carrying more emotional heat. People were not only asking who wore what or who looked more connected to Diana. They were also reading those details through a relationship they believed had already cracked. On paper, inheritance can sound like a technical matter, something legal, financial, and distant from emotion. But that is not how many people hear it in this case. They hear it as the latest chapter in a story already filled with tension between Meghan and Catherine. They hear it through old wounds, old headlines, old comparisons, and a long public habit of placing both women side by side. So when Meghan's side is linked to confirmation, inheritance, and Diana's wishes, the public does not respond as though they are hearing a dry family detail. They respond as though another deeply sensitive line has been crossed in an already strained royal relationship. It is not only about what was left behind. It is about who people believe stood closest to it, who felt shut out, and why that question still touches such a raw nerve today. What may have seemed like a minor disagreement between Catherine and Meghan grew worse because of the tension that was already there between them. But what impact could this rift have on the monarchy and on their family relationship? Could their differences be resolved quickly? Let's uncover the shocking details. The royal split that turned Diana's legacy into a public battle. What made this issue even bigger was that it stopped looking like a disagreement between two women and started looking like a deeper split between two royal households. Later commentary widened the picture and suggested that the Sussexes and the Waleses had been locked in serious tension since their days sharing office space at Kensington Palace. That detail mattered because it pushed the story beyond bridesmaid dresses, awkward headlines, and personal hurt. It suggested that what the public was watching was not one isolated clash, but a growing divide inside the heart of the royal family itself. At first, many people may have hoped the strain would fade with time. Instead, the cracks seemed to widen. Harry and Meghan stepped down as senior royals in January 2020. a move that stunned royal watchers and immediately changed the balance inside the family. Then, in March 2020, they moved to Los Angeles and began building a life far from palace walls. That physical distance made the emotional distance look even more real. They were no longer simply a royal couple doing things differently. They were now creating an entirely separate path, and the public could see it. Every new appearance, interview, and report made the separation feel less temporary and more like a permanent royal fracture. Then came the Oprah interview in March 2021, and that is where everything changed again. What had once been treated as rumor, tension, or palace gossip was suddenly pulled into full public view. Harry and Meghan spoke openly about mental health struggles, deep family strain, lack of support, and allegations of racism inside royal life. After that, there was no easy way to reduce the story to personality conflict or media exaggeration. The royal split had become visible, emotional, and impossible to ignore. Diana's memory still carries enormous emotional power, both inside royal discussions and far beyond them. So when Meghan's side is linked to inheritance, to Diana's wishes, and to the jewels and money that tied Diana's legacy to Harry and Meghan's life, people do not hear it as one more passing royal update. They hear it as something much bigger. It comes across as a bold attack on an idea people had long taken as settled. For years, Catherine was seen as the heir to Diana's public place. She had the ring, the calm presence, the royal duty, and the symbolic position beside the future king. Meghan, on the other hand, was often presented as someone outside that emotional space, almost like she could never truly belong there. But once Diana's own wishes, her jewelry, and the part of her legacy tied to Harry are viewed together, the old picture no longer looks complete. It starts raising deeper, uncomfortable questions. Catherine's public bond with Diana still carries enormous weight, and nothing about this new claim takes that away. People can still understand why she has long been seen as the royal figure most closely tied to Diana's image and place in the family. But this claim forces a fresh look at Meghan's role in that same story. Meghan no longer seems like someone standing outside Diana's legacy, watching it from a distance. Instead, she begins to look like someone whose link was real, visible, and meaningful all along. That is why the response has been so intense. This is not only about jewels or status. It touches old tensions, family rivalry, public image, and the deeper question of who truly carries Diana's lasting presence in royal life today. So, what do you think about Meghan's claim? Was she truly overshadowed all these years? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.